Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We are really delighted, honored to bring on a special guest today to start off the show, Emmett Golden from ESPN Radio. Emmett's been doing really ESPN Radio for, about 10 years now?
Yeah, I've been doing local stuff in Cleveland for 10 years. In the past 2 years, I've been doing stuff with ESPN Radio, started like national fill-in stuff, and now every Saturday I host Primetime on ESPN Radio with Dallin Cup.
Yeah, which is a great show. I love tuning into that. And then the show you do on ESPN Cleveland, that's the next level, right?
That's correct. Yeah, the next level, do that Monday through Friday. And then I host another show called Prime Time. It's the Browns postgame show on Sunday. So 7 days a week. Okay. You can find me somewhere.
Awesome. Well, speaking of the Browns, let's just get into it from the start. We're going to go all around the NFL here with Emmett. And I want to start with the Browns in Cleveland because, that's your area, that's your neck of the woods. And you've been doing sports talk radio in Cleveland, as you just said, for a long time now, which is extremely impressive. So you've seen it all. Your heart is in Cleveland, and you have the pulse of that city. So what are the fans saying today? That Cleveland, they have a winning record. It's for the first time in a long time. They're 2-1. Just quickly want to get an idea of what the fans feel like there before we go into just looking at a team. When you talk to the fans, when they call into your show, you talk to people outside of work, are they believers in Baker from what they're seeing in these 3 games? Or do you feel like it's more of a Kevin Stefanski system with those 2 great running backs, which I think is the best duo of running backs in the league? Well, what are the fans saying as the Browns head into week 4 with a 2-1 winning record?
Well, fans are happy because the Browns haven't been over 500 since, I think, 2014. So the fans are definitely happy. There are some that are like, yeah, okay, I know how this ends, right? Because Browns fans have been through a lot. So I would say they're cautiously optimistic is what Cleveland fans and how they feel right about now. As far as Baker Mayfield is concerned, it's funny because he lost a lot of supporters last season after the year that he had. And then the first week of the season, as the Browns got destroyed by Baltimore, there weren't a lot of Baker Mayfield supporters, at least, calling sports talk radio channels or, that you see out in the street. Well, the Browns win a couple games, and now he's starting to get that support again here locally, where that he had kind of his rookie year. I think the reason for the Browns' success, and this isn't a shot at Baker, but I don't think he's been the reason that the Browns are 2-1. I think it's, as you pointed out, it's Kevin Stefanski, it's Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. He had 2 great running backs, and I think Nick Chubb is the best back in the league, best real back. I think Christian McCaffrey is kind of, he does his own thing. Yeah, he does his own thing. But traditional running back, I don't think there's a better back than Chubb. And obviously Kareem Hunt led the NFL in rushing a few years ago. So Kevin Stefanski, what he's been able to do is not fall into the trap of, I have Odell, I have Jarvis, I have Austin Hooper, I got to throw the ball a bunch of times. He knows that this team where they're at, it's probably best that they just ground and pound, and they're able to do that and do it really, really well.
Yeah, and that's why I really liked the hire so much of Kevin Stefanski, because it's very comparable of what, Baker and Kirk Cousins, and I'm not saying that they're the same player, but in Minnesota, they didn't want to put the onus on Kirk Cousins. They wanted to put it on Dalvin Cook, the run, play action, that type of thing, which I loved it. I didn't know if Kevin Stefanski was going to be able to hold up to that and not give in to Odell getting the ball. And you bring up Odell. What are your thoughts about him? I think that he has been awesome when it comes to his attitude. He's not causing any stir-ups. He's not, saying, I need the ball, I want the ball. He's being a team player from the outside. Now, I'm not in Cleveland. That's just from national media and watching the games and stuff like that. Is that what you're also seeing in Cleveland? And what do you think about him? Do you think he should be there and he's good to be there as a Brown for long term?
Yeah, I think Odell has actually always had a good attitude ever since he came to Cleveland. There are things. He's a lightning rod. He's polarizing. So I think a lot of times us in the media try to find stories when it comes to Odell, and I'm not sure that they're always there. But we always find something to talk about. But his attitude has been great. I'm not sure if. I think he'll be around for a couple of years. I'm not sure the money he makes, the money Jarvis makes, and it looks like this team is going to be dedicated to running the football. You're going to have to pay at some point. You're going to have to pay Chubb. You're going to have to pay Baker. Hopefully, if Baker continues to play well, you're going to have to pay Denzel Ward. They got a bunch of guys set to make a lot of money, and at some point, you're going to have to let one of those receivers go. And I think Jarvis Landry has been such a big part of the changing of the culture in Cleveland that they would probably keep him. But I think this year, next year, I expect Odell to be in Cleveland. I expect him to have a good attitude. And when you have great running backs, that, DBs, their eyes are going to be in the backfield. Yep. That's going to give Odell, a big opportunity to get behind the secondary and make some big plays. Yeah,
no doubt. And that's what we saw in that Cincinnati game a couple Thursday nights ago. And that's Baker perfect throw to him, and Odell was ready for it. And that's why I think they brought him over there. And if they can stay patient with that. So just looking, and I know it's 3 weeks in, but and I know the two teams that they beat have not been the best competition, but in the NFL, it's 2-1. A win is a win. That's awesome. You take it and you go. Looking forward, looking at the schedule, looking at this team and what you've seen from the coaching staff and the players, is this a playoff team in your eyes by the way they're playing through 3 weeks?
I think they, could be right at that line, right? Maybe they just barely miss it, or maybe they barely make it. We know that the playoffs, got a little expansion this season, so there's more opportunity there. I don't think this is, a team that's going to win the AFC North because you still have, the Baltimore Ravens, despite losing against Patrick Mahomes, they're still a pretty good football team, and the Steelers are still a good football team. So I think the Browns have an opportunity. It'll be close, though, because, there's still going to be some tough days ahead. But you got to start by beating the teams you're supposed to beat.
There you go.
That used to be a Herculean. Used to take a Herculean effort for the Browns to do that. And right now it seems like they've at least gotten to that point.
Yeah, good steps forward for sure. All right, so you brought up the game last night. I want to move to that. One of the most highly anticipated Monday night games, really, since that Chiefs-Rams game from a couple years ago, which turned out to be a fantastic game. And for the most part, last night was all about reassuring everyone that the Chiefs just look completely unstoppable. Can anyone beat this Chiefs team? Emmett, do you believe there is a team out there in the AFC right now, just in the AFC, that can put some fear into this team at all? Because at this point, Baltimore clearly does not do that at this point right now.
Yeah, see, I think that, Baltimore can beat the Chiefs. I mean, they didn't beat them last night, and I give credit to the Chiefs because they were amazing. There was a point, though, in the third quarter where Baltimore turned everything around, and they were clicking on all cylinders, and you saw, the Chiefs go, they kind of got caught off guard. Now, they got together, made some plays, and pretty much won. But I think as this year progresses and as it goes along, I'm not throwing the Baltimore Ravens away as a AFC Super Bowl candidate quite yet. Obviously the Chiefs are the team because they're arguably the best player in football right now, and Pat Mahomes, and maybe you can't even argue against that right now. So I definitely think they're leading the way, and all the money should be on them to win the Super Bowl. I still believe that the Ravens can beat the Chiefs if they meet in the playoffs.
I do too, just because I think that the Ravens organization is so stable, and I think that John Harbaugh will be able to figure something out and change up a game plan when they are playing from behind, because that's really all it's about is, can they change up the way because when they're ahead, it's almost impossible to beat them with that running game. But
right.
When they're from behind, that's when things change. And that's the questions about Lamar. He's so young. I don't even think it's that fair to bring that up because he will develop as he goes. But last night to me was about 3 weeks into the season. It was Russell Wilson, and Pat Mahomes wanted to show everyone, hey, I'm still here too. This is, I'm right around here. But I do want to switch to that Ravens and, what you brought about. You see them a lot because you cover the Browns, and then you look at the Ravens and the Steelers with Big Ben back, and that Steelers defense looks awesome. When you look at those two teams, is the gap as big as a lot of people thought the gap might be before the season started, or can the Steelers really actually, fight for that division, actually win the AFC North possibly?
I think they're going to be in it. I definitely think that there's an opportunity for Pittsburgh to win the AFC North. It's going to take Baltimore to do some un-Baltimore type things, in my opinion. But that for the most part, the Steelers aren't going to beat themselves. So that's going to give them a shot pretty much, every week. Now, Big Ben's health, it kind of depends on that, because if he goes down, then it's going to be tough. But, that's really any team, because if Lamar Jackson goes down, the Ravens are going to be completely out of it as well. So I think they have an opportunity, but right now I don't think it's very, very close. Put it like this. I think the Ravens are closer to the Chiefs than the Steelers are to the Ravens.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. And it's a good point about the backups. We saw the Steelers backups in action last year, and it was very impressive, to say the least, that they went 8-8 with those two, Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges as quarterbacks. So Big Ben's health is definitely going to be a big question mark throughout all of that. Now, I want to transition to Drew Brees and the Saints. Two losses in a row after that opening night win against the Bucs. And Drew Brees, he struggled a bit. He played much better the other night against the Packers, but we know Michael Thomas is out. And I actually said on this show before the season that I didn't think the Saints were going to make the playoffs. And it was a big conversation. I had people tweeting at me saying that I'm an idiot and I don't know football and all that stuff. But the reason why I said it, and I want to get your opinion on this, Emmett, is I think that we have seen Tom Brady win the MVP at age 40, and then we've seen him win the Super Bowl at age 41. And I think we've almost instilled in our heads as football fans that quarterbacks are able to play into their 40s like that, when really we haven't seen anyone do that successfully other than Brady. And what are your thoughts on that theory right there? And do you think that Brees still has some juice and we're just overreacting here? Or is Brady the anomaly and this Saints season could get worse from here?
No, I understand exactly what you're saying. Brady has been an anomaly, during his career.
That's for sure.
He's been in the longevity that he's had. So I see your point, and I agree with it. I just approach with great players, and I believe Drew Brees is a great player. Mm-hmm. I have to see them not do it. A couple games here, Drew Brees hasn't looked like Drew Brees, but there's still 13 left. So there's so much football left. I don't like to count greatness out until I You know, so I agree with your premise, and I think you're on to something. But until, you know, the Saints are 1-8 or something like that, I'm going to give Drew the benefit of the doubt.
And that's fair because he does have a brilliant coach in Sean Payton that I think will be able to help him along the way too, even if he is losing a little bit of juice there. Now, for selfish reasons, I need to bring this up because I don't know if you know this, Emmett, but I am a Falcons fan, and it has been one terrible start to the season. It's been embarrassing. And it's really hard to even talk football, to be frank, because of what they have done. How can just, you know, someone that's not a Falcons fan and yourself, that's just looking from Cleveland, that's just watching these games as someone that clearly knows football very well, talks football for a living, what is it is this something where you think that they truly, once the fourth quarter comes in, they know that they're going to do it, and now it's mentally into their head where they're going to choke this type of game away? Like, how can you explain something like what the Atlanta Falcons have been doing through 3 weeks in?
I think a lot of it is mental. I think the other half of it is coaching. You know, when you've lost games that you've had to lead in, you start to question the decisions that the coaches make, and you start to question the belief in your teammates. And I've seen it, you know, and the Browns haven't been good in a while, but I have seen teams struggle to get over the hump, and a lot of times it's just believing. And I think that's what Atlanta's going through right now, that when the fourth quarter rolls around, it's kind of like, okay, are we going to blow this one again? And if you make a bad play, then it's here we go. Yeah. And I think that's the toughest thing to overcome. You know, with Atlanta, they made it slow. It may be time to, you know, turn that team over. You know, maybe time to make a coaching change. Maybe invest in a younger quarterback. So this team, as we've known it, may have run its course.
Yeah, and I think that's a very fair point, and I think you can even almost see it on the field in the players. You know, like watching that Bears game, you could tell when Nick Foles came in and he threw that first touchdown pass, and it became a 10-point game instead of a 17-point game, you could just kind of see like it was the palms were getting sweaty, everything was getting tight, they couldn't get a first down. And I mean, that's sports, man. That's why we love sports. That's why we hate sports. That's what happens. Now, I want to get you out on here on this note to change it. I know this is a football show, but I love basketball, and I know you love sports. You love basketball yourself. And with you being in Cleveland, I want to bring this up because we're on the eve here of Game 1 of the NBA Finals. And I find this fascinating, and I'm happy that I'm talking to someone from Cleveland so I could get what you hear and what you hear on a daily basis. Today, like, how do the people in Cleveland feel about LeBron James? Like, are they rooting for him to win this championship, or do you think there's still a majority of people in Cleveland that are rooting against him?
I would say the majority of fans in Cleveland are rooting for LeBron.
Okay.
He won a title in Cleveland, and that's not an easy task. It's not an easy thing to do. So, listen, he left, and a lot of fans were angry. I was one of them. I was furious when he left. I felt betrayed. He came back. He won the title, and played pretty well in the other finals appearances that they didn't win the title. Like, it wasn't his fault that the Cavs only won one during the 4 years that he was here, because he was spectacular night in and night out. So you have your, fan here and there that's never going to forgive him for leaving the first time. But overall, LeBron's good in Cleveland. Like, they're okay with him. We really appreciated that. Winning that title, man, and that parade was something that everybody in Cleveland who was alive, they'll never forget it. There'll be a lot of stories told about that day. So LeBron overall is cool in Cleveland. Yeah, no, someone that, I have nothing to do with Cleveland at all. And it was really one of the coolest things ever watching that parade and watching him win that 2016 championship. And to your point about the finals, I mean, you can say, really, and you can do this with a lot of things, but I mean, even if Love or just Irving is there for that first final, not even both of them,
there's a good chance that they win that. And then if Kevin Durant doesn't do the whole go to a 73-win team, I mean, there's a good chance they win another one of those. I'm not saying they win them all, but that 51-8-8 finals or game one that he put up was the best basketball game I've ever seen someone play. And it's really cool to hear you talk about because I'm sure you hear it all the time from the fans. So I think it's cool that they've kind of forgiven him for what he did. And just really one more question. You said you felt betrayed. Was it more of the way he left, or was it because he left in general?
Well, part of it was the way that he left. The other part of it was he was a Northeast Ohio guy, so it felt like, you gotta understand this.
Yeah.
You have to get it. You have to get how fortunate we are as a community to have the best player in basketball and what it means to us. So it was those two reasons. Now, as I got older, and kind of got it further away, I tell you the day I stopped being mad at LeBron was I was covering an Ohio State game.
Yeah.
And it was like a Halloween night or something, Halloween weekend. It was a night game, and he was there, and he was on the field before the game playing catch with his son. And I have two boys myself, and I thought to myself, like, man, that's pretty cool, because LeBron could have just been like, hey, I'm out with the fellas tonight, and we're hanging out, we're going to this game. But I thought it was cool that he brought his kids.
That is cool.
And then I was walking right behind him as security took him up to Gene Smith's box, and there was fans everywhere, fans going crazy, LeBron, LeBron, LeBron. And I saw the way he held on to the arms of his two sons. And I said to myself, like, he's a person,
Yeah.
I saw him as a person, not like an athlete, not like this guy that left. I saw him as a father, and that changed my perspective on LeBron after that.
Yeah, not some dude that looked like he was made in a lab or anything like that.
Right. Because there's, when you have kids and stuff, you understand how important they are.
Yeah.
To you. And I kind of related to him in that moment, and I said, okay, I could be disappointed, that he left, but I'm going to stop, being so angry and so mad at him.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I was, I'm, like I said, I'm not from Cleveland, but I thought it was the coolest thing for him to go back and bring a title. And the way he did it, man, coming down from 3-1 against a team like the Warriors that were calling him names and all that stuff, that was awesome. Really one of the coolest moments. For me, being 26 years old, I'm a little bit younger for the MJ era, so LeBron's kind of like our guy, and that was one of the coolest things to see, and I've always been a big fan of him, so I've always wanted to talk to someone from Cleveland about that, man. Hey, I appreciate it, Emmett. This was awesome. It was an honor for me. I know I was telling my listeners that you were going to be on, and I know they were excited about it. You guys can listen to Emmett Golden on ESPN Radio on Saturdays, and then all Monday through Friday on ESPN Cleveland. All over the place. He's talking sports, so you can find him somewhere. Emmett, thank you so much for the time. It really does mean a lot, man.
Hey, no problem, man.
Awesome. That was Emmett Golden. You can find him all over ESPN Airwaves, ESPN Cleveland, Monday through Friday, as well as on ESPN Radio, National ESPN Radio, every Saturday. Does a really, really good job, and I hope you guys enjoyed that. Usually we always go solo dolo on this podcast, on these episodes, but he knows so much about sports. I think he's really good at, getting out his points the proper way. I think he answered all of the questions that I had in a great way. And I thought that was something that you guys, the listeners, would really enjoy. Let me step back from the mic a little bit. Let me step back from doing my solo dolo and talking in y'all's ears the whole time, and let him go at it for a little bit and talk about some things that different perspectives on. So we're going to take a quick break now, and then when we come back, it is time to recap the Monday night showdown. Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I'm going to bring it up, and I'm going to bring it up right now. Can the Kansas City Chiefs go undefeated? Oh, I said it. Let's talk about it right after this.
Listen up, sports bettors. This is Bryce and Ethan here to tell you about our favorite sports book, and that's BetUS. Football, basketball, and baseball are all back, and that means it's time to get down your bets. I only endorse one sports book, and that's BetUS.com. Why, you ask? BetUS is the pioneer in online betting with more than 25 years in the biz. You need a sports book with integrity and longevity, and you need to know that you're going to get paid.
Right. You need a sports book that offers everything, including live betting, MMA, golf, horses, esports, entertainment, and all kinds of crazy prop bets and futures. Nobody in the industry gives you better or bigger bonuses than BetUS. Go to betus.com now and fill out your information. It only takes a minute. And when you get to the "How did you hear about us" box, type in GSMC football. And you can get up to 150% in bonuses on your first deposit. Nobody beats that. I bet at BetUS, and so should you. Join BetUS today, and don't forget to type in GSMC football to get up to 150% bonus on your first deposit. That's betus.com.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
We are back. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I'm your boy. I'm your host, Kayvon Izami. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in throughout the week. However you're listening, wherever you're listening, whenever you're listening, we thank you so much for, just taking the time out and listening to us. And listen, I know, 80 minutes is a long time, all right? Trust me, even for someone like me who can just go on and on and on and talk. Like I could have talked to Emmett all day. I really could have. If he didn't have to go do his show, we would have just kept going for the whole show there. But, I got to go solo dolo throughout this, and he has things to do because he's very busy and puts out a lot of great content. But even for someone like me that talks like crazy, this is tough. So, no one's asking you to sit down and listen to all 80 minutes of the show. Listen a little bit. While you're doing your work, while you have some free time, while you're in the car, take a break, get your coffee. You know how I love when I hear that you guys are drinking your coffee while listening to the show. I even got a couple of tweets about it the other day because I love so much. I always talk about coffee. Got some people saying, "Hey, Kayvon, drinking some coffee, listen to you." Got my buddy that's always doing that. Shout out to B-Ray while he's at work. So, do your thing, come back, check us back out on the GSMC Football Podcast. We definitely appreciate that. And look, we appreciate Emmett Golden. I hope you guys enjoyed that. I thought that it was really cool, get some really good football takes with him. And then even, I know we're a football show, but even talking a little bit about LeBron, because I know everyone that listens to this show for the majority, for the most part, are sports fans and all, right? Like you guys pretty much watch everything. During that pandemic, we all were so desperate, you probably would have watched like cricket or anything, and no disrespect to cricket, but we just not something we tend to watch much here in the United States at least. So what happened is, he came on, which was really cool of him. Again, really appreciate it because I know he's so busy, and it was cool to talk a little bit about LeBron, just from someone that has been in the pulse. I mean, he's been doing Cleveland radio for about a decade, guys. That's a long time. I mean, he knows how these fans feel. He feels how he feels. He's a Cleveland fan till he dies. He was born and raised in Cleveland, from what he was saying. So it was cool to hear him say that, the NBA Finals start tomorrow, and most of the Cleveland fans are rooting for LeBron. And I think a lot of people are too. You know, this funny thing, we'll get back into football here in a second. The funny thing about basketball, and really this is actually implies to really any sport where you have greatness, the generations don't want to see their great player get passed, right? So, you know, if you're a Jordan era person, like if you're born in the 70s, the 80s, you know, early 80s, maybe even early 90s, the 60s, like, yeah, you're a Jordan person, right? Because you grew up when you saw Jordan at his peak. You saw Jordan come into the league. You saw him go 6-0 in the finals. So you gravitated to him. Now, of course, the Knicks fans and you know, the Charles Barkley fans and Patrick Ewing fans, with the Pacer fans, like, those fans do not like Jordan because he didn't allow them to win it. You know, the Jazz fan, he didn't allow them to win a championship. So that's a little bit different. But then for my generation, you know, the ones that are born in the late 90s or the early 2000s or you know, even later 2000s, you're a LeBron mainly, because you're a LeBron guy, because that's the great person that you grew up watching, right? He is your generation superstar. He is your generation GOAT. There can be different generation GOATs. Look, it's sports radio. You always are going to have to narrow down the GOAT, but that you can have different generation GOATs for sure, you know? So it's like the same in football, you know, the people that were born in the Joe Montana era, they don't want to see Tom Brady pass Joe Montana. They just don't want to see it. MJ fans, they don't want to see LeBron pass MJ. And whatever your definition of pass is, you know, I'm not saying any of that has happened, or maybe it already has, you know, depending on your takes. I think LeBron is the greatest player in the world based on what I have seen him play. And I have watched Jordan. I've watched all of Jordan's games, all of his finals appearance, all of that stuff. But that's my opinion, right? Because I think what LeBron's done for a longer span of time is more impactful to me, with the less talent, the less coaching, all of that stuff is what I take into it. And everyone has their different criteria, what goes into the GOAT, but the overall assessment is what I'm trying to say is you don't want to see your generation GOAT get passed, right? So it's so interesting to see LeBron in his 17th year now going for a fourth ring with a third different franchise, born in Cleveland. Like, how do Cleveland fans feel about that? And I think that was really cool to listen to Emmett talk about that. And what did you guys, what did you guys think about that conversation? What did you guys think about what he said about Baker and the Browns? You know, I thought that that was really interesting how he, you know, he thinks that Odell will be there for a couple years, but eventually, you know, when it comes down to it, he's going to go because of the money that they're going to have to pay Chubb. And let's not get it twisted. They're going to pay someone like Chubb over a re-up contract on Odell, you know? So, but he loved Odell's attitude. He thinks Odell has a great attitude. He thinks Odell's had a great attitude since he's been to Cleveland. And I wasn't trying to say that Odell doesn't have a good attitude. I was just saying it's very impressive how Odell has been able to adapt to this new role. I mean, if you guys think about it, Odell was a superstar, guys. We were talking about Odell as the most electric wide receiver we have ever seen. We were talking about Odell in that type of frame, right? Then he goes to Cleveland, and he's completely disappeared. I mean, he's not even fantasy worthy. Seriously. I didn't draft him in any of my fantasy leagues, and I'm in like 7 freaking fantasy leagues, which is way too much, by the way. I love fantasy. I'm a fantasy guy. I will always do fantasy. But I am not one of those people that can have like 20 leagues. And this is the first year where I really went all out because, you know, I've got a bunch of friends leagues that I'm in, then I'm in a work league, and then I'm in another work league, then I'm in like a friends work league, and a friends league. Like, there's so many leagues that I'm in, and this is just too much on my plate. Like, I cannot, every Tuesday and Wednesday when the waiver wire comes around, it's so hard taking the time to go around to each team and figure out what I need to drop and all this stuff. I am not a person that can handle 7 teams like this. Definitely going to scale it back to my usual 5 is what I like to do. 5 is perfect, you know. But hey, my teams are looking good all the way around, so that's a positive. Besides this one league, I'm 0-3 in right now, and it's making me very angry because usually I'm a pretty good fantasy player. But that as I just went on my little side show right there, what the whole point is, I didn't take Odell in any league because I didn't think Odell was going to have a great season, because I didn't think he was going to get the ball. It's not even his fault. He's just not getting the ball because that's not what Kevin Stefanski does. Now, in Minnesota, Kevin Stefanski did use Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs a lot more. Like, they put up a lot more stats up than what Odell is for these first 3 weeks. Now, I don't know if that's because Stefanski doesn't trust Baker like he trusted Kirk Cousins, or if Kevin Stefanski is really just trying to do all run, and make Baker do as little as possible. And we'll find that out as we go. I mean, you got to give the Browns congrats. Even though they beat up on 2 opponents that they should beat, and Joe Burrow gave them a run for their money, and then they beat Washington like they're supposed to, and they're sitting at 2-1 for the first time since 2014 or something like that. I forgot what he said, but it's been a long time. So that, all in all, very, very impressive with what Kevin Stefanski's doing. I'm not going to say that I'm impressed with Baker yet. Baker needs to show me a lot more. I am impressed with the organization of hiring Kevin Stefanski, because Kevin Stefanski is using the reason why he was hired. And what does that mean, Kayvon? It means that he was hired to do exactly what he did in Minnesota with Cleveland. Why? Okay, look at Minnesota. What do you have? A quarterback that you don't really trust that much. A good quarterback that we know can play football, but at the end of the day, are you going to put the ball in their hands to really go out and win you the game? Are you going to trust them to go out and throw it 50 times a game? No, you're not. You're not going to trust that with Kirk Cousins, and you're not going to trust that with Baker Mayfield. It's just that simple. Maybe Baker can get to that one day, but Kirk is already at the point where that's not happening, right? And right now, Baker's at that point too. So what do? You create the run game. Run, keep the defense off balance, play action pass. That's when you bring Odell in, right? So that's why they hired Stefanski, because they literally looked at what they had in Minnesota and what he did with Cousins and said, Baker is more like Cousins than he is like a Matt Stafford or a Matt Ryan, someone that is okay to drop back and throw the ball 50 times a game if they have to, but you don't necessarily want them to either, right? Baker's not at that point yet. So they hired Stefanski to take the ball out of Baker's hands. Just like in Minnesota, he took the ball out of the Vikings, out of Kirk Cousins' hand. And it worked. So far, 1 year in, 3 games in, it's working. Now, they got beat up real bad against the Baltimore team, and that's really the only good team that they played so far. So we're going to have to see how it goes. And just like Emmett said, there's going to be ups and downs. There's no doubt about it. It's the Browns. They're not there yet, but Myles Garrett looks great. Kareem Hunt looks great. Nick Chubb looks great. That offensive line looks much better. They are not using Austin Hooper. That was a waste of money. I don't know why they threw that type of money at Hooper. Stefanski never used the tight ends that much in his system. In the red zone he did, but not much at all. So I never understood that hire from the start, or that signing from the start with Hooper. But we'll see if they end up really get him involved. And even Landry hasn't done that much. I mean, they're winning off the run game and then their defense, and that's okay for now. And we'll see how it keeps up. So really awesome by Emmett to come on and talk more about that. And we're going to dive into some more of that conversation. We're going to talk about the Saints, my theory on the age thing with Drew Brees and why he's falling off. But first, I want to get into this Monday night recap, all right? This Monday night game was something. Like I said on the interview, this was one of the most highly anticipated Monday night games that we have been waiting for since the schedule came out, right? When that schedule came out, everyone got their highlighters, jumped on their schedule, and said, let's circle this baby. This is that ESPN Monday Nighter, Week 3, heck yeah. And the Baltimore Ravens did that too. The Baltimore Ravens, they hung up their schedule or whatever they do in their locker room. Each team does something different. Some people hang up the schedule, some people hang up the standings, some people don't. Some teams don't do either. Depends on the coach. But wherever they do have it hung up, they circled that game. And they said, we're 0-2 against Mahomes. We're 0-2 against the Chiefs with Lamar. This is our game. This is our time. We're at home. Let's prove something. Now, granted, there was no fans in the stands, so the at-home thing is kind of a bit of a reach, more of a neutral field, I would say. But playing on your turf, I guess that's an advantage you could talk about, but I don't really go there. So the Chiefs, on the other hand, did they circle it? I would say no. I don't think so, because the Chiefs are cool. They're calm. They're collected. They just won a Super Bowl. They've beaten the Ravens and Lamar twice already. This was not a big game for them. But boy, did they show up like it was. I mean, what a game plan, what a game, the execution, the offense, the defense. It was beautiful. It was beautiful by the Chiefs. You got to give credit to Andy Reid, to Eric Bieniemy, to Patrick Mahomes, of course. The team is light years ahead of others. So it was a game where the Chiefs were in control from the start, right? I know at one point in the second half, the Ravens cut it to within 7, but it didn't matter. That game never felt, not once throughout the game, did it feel like Baltimore was going to win or Baltimore was regaining control. I don't care that it got to 27 to 20. It did not feel like it was a 7-point game to me. And I was watching. The Chiefs had it under control from the first drive. And every time the Chiefs needed to make a big play, they did. Mahomes went 10 for 13 on third down. 10 of 13, guys. This is the National Football League. Do you know how crushing that is for a defense to get an offense to third down 13 times? You stop them on first, you stop them on second. Yes, we got them on third. One more stop and we get off the field and our offense gets the ball back. And he converted 10 of those times. It takes all the air out of the defense. And it felt like every single time Mahomes needed to make a play, he did. He is special, man. Baltimore comes back in the second half, and it's a one-possession game, and the Ravens had the Chiefs' offense stuck on 3rd and 10, and the secondary did a great job covering everyone. But what did Mahomes do? He said, okay, let me just run it for 12 yards and get this first down. The guy is so good. And look, Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy, they deserve their credit. They're going to get their credit. They're offensive geniuses. Chris Johnson, owner of the Jets, I hope you were watching because that's what a real offensive genius looks in Eric Bieniemy. That's what a real offensive genius looks in Andy Reid, which, by the way, how does Eric Bieniemy not have a job, not have a head coaching job? I mean, I'll tell you this. If the Falcons fire Dan Quinn, which it looks like they're going to, and I'm not calling for anyone's job, but Dan Quinn, I mean, enough is enough. But there's a lot of problems there. It's not just him. They should hire Eric Bieniemy. Eric Bieniemy is perfect for that team, a team that has veteran leadership but needs some offensive juices going, needs a different type of scheme going. I don't know how he has not gotten a head coaching job, but he will next season. You can bet on that. He will have a head coaching job next season. He will, for sure. You can bet on that. But they deserve credit. But all in all, to me, what stood out the most is Mahomes is something special. He's clutch. He's flawless. He's clutch, he's flawless, and he was something special. What Mahomes is doing to teams in the month of September is unheard of. Mahomes is 10-0 in September in the NFL. 10-0. You know how hard that is? And think about this. In September, see, a lot of these teams, they get that's when the NFL season starts, right? Your first 4 games are in September, a game every week, 4 weeks in a month, and then it's over, right? That month is over. A lot of these teams come out of the off season, the preseason, not fully ready to go. It's early, right? Your team makes mistakes. You're still feeling out what's going on. You're feeling out your opponents. You're feeling out your new players, your new offensive linemen, whatever. Well, the Chiefs have everyone back this year. But in previous years, the fact that he has come out with this team and has not lost a football game in the month of September, that's a remarkable stat. That doesn't happen in the National Football League. Teams use that first month to really get going and get the jets going under their players. Get their legs rolling, especially in a year like this with no preseason and barely an offseason. And then it keeps going, though. It keeps going. He has thrown 32 touchdowns to 0 interceptions in the month of September. 32 touchdowns to 0 interceptions. 330 yards passing a game with a passer rating of 124.4. I still do not understand what that freaking passer rating means. How can anything be over 100? Someone explain that to me. I have looked it up. I have read it. Aaron Rodgers even said it the last season. He said, what does that stat mean? No one knows, it seems like. But Mahomes is killing it. The guy has never thrown an interception in the month of September. Like, that does not happen in the National Football League. Just like you do not win every single game in the month of September. And what we learned last night was that the Chiefs are more dangerous than we even thought. Look, I don't even need to look at the final score. There were times last night when the Chiefs made the Ravens look like the New York Jets. And the Chiefs made mistakes. The Chiefs didn't even play a perfect football game. But there were times last night when I was watching this game and I said, oh my goodness, the Chiefs are making Lamar Jackson look like a deer in headlights. Look shook. Like he didn't know what to do. They made the team, the Ravens as a whole, look like the New York Jets. That's what the Chiefs did last night, and they didn't even play that good of a football game. They made a lot of mistakes. Like, the Chiefs did not play their best football. They had a kick return go for a touchdown against them. They missed a field goal. They missed an extra point. The run game wasn't good. It was sloppy, and they were dominating the number 1 defense in football. The Ravens, to majority of people, are the number 2 team in all of football, and they literally got stiff-armed by the Chiefs when the Chiefs didn't even give them their best shot. It was insane to watch. I couldn't believe it. And neither could Lamar. Lamar said it after the game. They're our kryptonite. Oh, no. You do not want to hear that if you're a Baltimore fan. It's one thing to go out and play like that. It's another thing to admit it. To your fans. To your organization. Everyone already knows you're thinking that. You don't need to come out and say it. It's a mental thing now for Lamar. And we'll get into the Ravens more. But there's only one question to ask now after what we saw. Can the Kansas City Chiefs go undefeated? Can the Kansas City Chiefs be the first team since the 2007 Patriots to go undefeated in the regular season? And then be the first team since the 1972 Dolphins, so the second team ever to go undefeated the entire year. Can they? What do you think? Well, let's answer it right after this. We're going to take a quick break. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. Do not go anywhere. When we come back, I am going to tell you if Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs can go undefeated and what is up with Lamar and the Ravens when they play this team. Have the Chiefs created a open playbook for the rest of the league to do when they play against that Lamar Jackson-led offense? Find out just after this.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. The GSMC Football Podcast is brought to you by the great GSMC Podcast Network. Go ahead and check it out. Lots of awesome content, lots of different types of topics that you really wouldn't think are out there with podcasts, which is cool. You know, like something that you haven't heard of. Oh, wow, there's a podcast about this? Well, yeah, now there's podcasts about pretty much everything, it seems like, but go check it out. I'm serious. There's a lot of really cool stuff. Go check out the content. Give it a like. Give it a subscribe. But then just make sure you always come on back to the GSMC Football Podcast and listen to me and tweet me and talk to me because I need you, because I get bored if you're not there. So thank you very much. I like to think that I'm talking to all of you. And I like to think that you guys are talking back and arguing back. And that's what gets me fired up. And that's it pumps me to get through this show. And that's what we love to do. So let's keep that going. All right. Great time to be in sports, right? Great time to love sports. I mean, first of all, big congrats to Gary Bettman in the NHL, the first team to officially finish a successful bubble season. The NBA Finals start tomorrow. You know, hopefully everything stays good there. They've been perfect so far, so knock on wood that they can get through this one last series and then also crown a champion. The MLB playoffs started today, and really, I gave Commissioner Rob Manfred of the MLB, Major League Baseball, a lot of crap this offseason because it was just terrible leadership. They weren't getting anything done. They were too busy fighting about money. They didn't talk about the safety precautions and what they needed to get to make sure they were safest and not spreading the virus. It was a disaster. But you got to give a lot of credit to Rob Manfred because throughout all that, he didn't give up. He didn't throw in the white towel. He got everything together, and he completely changed it all. He limited the virus. We barely saw any outbreaks from teams anymore after the Marlins and the Cardinals, and now we're officially in the postseason, and that's pretty cool to see. So congrats to them for their playoff start today. Congrats to the Tampa Bay Lightning for winning their Super Bowl. It is their Super Bowl, yeah, for winning the Stanley Cup and finishing, their first ever bubble season, and then now congrats to the Miami Heat and the Los Angeles Lakers for getting to the finals, but only one team we can congrats from there, and we'll see who it is starting tomorrow. And congrats to the Kansas City Chiefs for letting us all know once again, reminding us all, reassuring us all that they're unstoppable. And just like I told Emmett when we were doing that interview in segment 1, go check it out if you're just tuning in somewhere halfway through the show. I know a lot of people like the second half, get a bigger lead than we had in the first half. So you come and check through halftime. But we had a great interview with Emmett Golden, ESPN Cleveland, also ESPN National Radio. Does a great job in doing sports radio for a long time. Has a really cool story, too, of how he got into it. And really appreciate him jumping on. That was really cool of him, and I hope you guys really enjoyed it. Let me know if you did. We'll do more interviews like that every so often. But I asked him. I told him this. I said, what I saw in that game was it was the Chiefs reassuring to everyone that, hey, we're unstoppable, and it was Patrick Mahomes letting everyone know that, hey, look, all I've heard through 3 games is Russell Wilson. And Russell Wilson's cooking, and he's going to win the MVP. And, hey, props to him. He's been killing it, and we should be talking about Russell Wilson. But Patrick Mahomes wanted to let everyone know, hey, yeah, I'm right here too. Yeah, I didn't have a good game 2 against the Chargers, but guess what? We won, and we're undefeated too, and I'm right over here, so take a look at me. While Lamar and the Ravens are really just putting fuel to the fire on the critics, on the haters, on the ones that believe Lamar is a fantastic, electric quarterback that can do it all, but if he's down, goodbye. No chance. Because they don't have a passing game. And let me tell you something. The more this happens, the more those haters are going to come out, and the more those haters are going to get louder. Now, I'm on the fence. I think Lamar will develop. I think Lamar is so good as an athlete and such a determined player. I mean, you can just tell he is determined to get better each and every day. He's going to get better, and he's going to work hard on that. And because of that, he will. It's kind of like Giannis. You can tell Giannis is very determined as well. Now, I think Lamar has a better chance to develop more of a game than Giannis, but that's a whole different thing because that's different with shooting ability and basketball and all that. Lamar has the physical attributes. It's up to the coaching staff, all right? We're giving a lot of hate to Lamar when really the coaching staff has to put him in a better place. That whole team has to understand that they're not going to be up 30 all the time, be able to run the ball. You would think that they learned that last year when they just steamrolled through the whole regular season, and then the first week of the playoffs come by, and they got just destroyed, run right down the middle, right through their throat by the Tennessee Titans and Derrick Henry, right? You would think over the offseason they said, okay, we need to add some more things to our playbook of when we are down. And we need to work on those mechanics of Lamar Jackson. That didn't happen last night. And now the Ravens have a lot of work to do. They really do. Look, they're still going to be one of the best teams in football. But they have a lot of work to do because Kansas City might have opened something that a lot of teams are now going to say, okay, if we can just get a little bit of a lead, we can beat them. And we'll get into more of that in a second. But first I want to go into what I talked about, how I ended this. Patrick Mahomes has not lost a game in September. Patrick Mahomes has thrown 32 touchdowns and 0 interceptions in the game in the month of September. Patrick Mahomes made the best defense statistically through 3 weeks in the Baltimore Ravens look like the New York Jets last night. Can Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs go undefeated? That's right. I want to talk about that. I want to go there. I want to bring out the all-time sports talk radio talk and go there. Is that a possibility? I know we're only 3 weeks in, but let's have some fun. Let's have some fun. Now, jump on the train and follow along because this is going to be a nice, fun ride. It might be a little bumpy. You might get a little confused. You might call me crazy, but hold on, buckle up. And when we get to the end and we blow that horn, you tell me if you think that this is actually a real possibility of the Chiefs being able to go undefeated. Now, let's start here. The Baltimore Ravens. Everyone listening, everyone that watches football would say, even if you're a Baltimore hater, a Raven hater, you would still say that the Ravens are a top 5 team in the NFL, right? Like, put everything aside, if you are actually a realistic person that is willing to, be real about your debates, you would say that the Ravens are a top 5 team. If you don't want to put them number 2 or number 3 or number 4, that's fine. But they're in the top 5 in the NFL right now, right? It doesn't matter how they lost. There's no doubt, right? So, and many people saying going into that game said that they were the best team in the NFL, or the second best team, or at the very least the third best team. And the Chiefs spanked them up and down all night. They did. There's no other way to put it. And it's not just the offense of the Chiefs. It's the defense too. The Ravens looked unstoppable before this game. They looked better than the Chiefs did entering this game. And then the Chiefs made them look like a bad football team, guys. It's not like the Chiefs just beat the Ravens. That's my whole point here. They made the Ravens look so bad in doing it. The Ravens couldn't do anything against the Chiefs. The Ravens' defense was the best in the league before this game. And then they couldn't stop the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes was out there counting on his fingers the amount of touchdowns he threw. Or maybe it was something else. Maybe he actually was counting on his fingers the amount of players that the NFL ranked in front of him. He was saying, let's see, the NFL ranked me the 4th most talented player? Okay, so 1 finger Russell Wilson, 2 fingers Lamar Jackson, 3 fingers Aaron Donald, and then 4 fingers me? And I also just happened to throw 4 touchdown passes, so I guess that goes together. I mean, we all saw him put that show on, right? We all saw him count his fingers like that. So now you give this man a chip on his shoulder? Nobody is going to be able to stop the Chiefs, and here is why. They are so much better than everyone else. It's that simple. Look, I know you guys wanted a big, fat, analytical answer of why. It's simple. You want facts? I can give you facts. You want statistics? I can give you statistics. But all that doesn't matter because my eyes and your eyes tell you that they are by far, above and away, over the mountains and the hills, the best football team in the NFL. But wait. You're going to tell me it's the NFL and nobody, and it's the NFL and anybody can lose on any given Sunday. I mean, they made a movie called Any Given Sunday, right? And you wouldn't be wrong. That's a fair point. That can definitely happen. And it usually does. That's why we have only had one team go undefeated in the history of this sport, the 1972 Dolphins. It's very hard. It's nearly impossible. But when you are so much better than everyone else, you can do this. Here's how I will break down the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's how I will break down the Kansas City Chiefs that they are so much better than everyone else. There's about 15 teams in the league that even if Patrick Mahomes, or even if the team in general, let's put it this way, there's about 15 teams in the league that if the Chiefs play poorly against them, they will still win. The Chiefs will still win. It might be ugly, but they'll still get the win. We saw that last week, right, when they didn't show up against the Los Angeles Chargers. And last second, Tyrod got that shot that actually went, into his lung somehow. And it was supposed to be his rib, whatever. That's a whole different topic. And it was ugly, the Chiefs, but they ended up gutting it out and winning, right? But they played terrible. Justin Herbert had to start the last second. They weren't prepared for him as quarterback. And they played terrible, but they gutted it out and won. So there are about 15 of those teams that can happen. They can play terrible and they'll still win. Then there are about 13, 14 teams they have that are good and that the Chiefs have to play good against to beat. Just play good, such as what we saw last night, the Baltimore Ravens. And the Ravens, for anyone else, would be one of those teams where you have to play great. You have to play your best football to beat. But we just saw last night that that's not the case for the Chiefs. The Chiefs did not play their best football, and they steamrolled the Ravens last night. So that's why the Ravens are in that category just for the Chiefs. And then you have about 3, maybe 4 teams that they really need to play well to beat. I mean, that they have to really play well if they want to beat. Like the New England Patriots, which they play this Sunday. There is a famous quote. I forgot who said the quote, but it goes like this. Life is a competition between you and yourself. That's perfect. The only way the Chiefs lose is if they do it to themselves. They're competing against themselves. No one is beating the Chiefs. The Chiefs will have to beat themselves. And as Mahomes gets older by the day by day, game by game, he is getting better. and beating yourself is going to be out of the picture sooner and sooner. All right? So now you want stats? Let me give you stats. The Chiefs team hasn't lost a game the Chiefs have not lost a game in 14 games with Patrick Mahomes being healthy. That's dating all the way back to when the Chiefs lost to the Tennessee Titans 35-32 last year, and that was the game that Mahomes just came back from injury. He was out for those couple games last year because of his knee injury. He just came back. They lost to the Titans in Tennessee 35-32. He was hobbled that game. And then they lost to the Packers with Matt Moore starting, not Mahomes. Mahomes was out that game. Outside of that, they haven't lost since October 13th of 2019. October 13th of 2019 to the Houston Texans with a healthy Patrick Mahomes playing. That's crazy, right? But wait, I know what you're thinking. Well, what if Mahomes gets hurt again then, huh? He showed us that he can get hurt before. What if he gets hurt again? Great thought. Well, that's fair. If Mahomes gets hurt again, then it's a wrap. All bets are off. They will lose, right? This is the NFL. You go as far as your quarterback's able to take you, then the rest of the town can push you to the top. They're not winning. They'll win a couple games here and there, but they're not winning the Super Bowl without Mahomes. They're not going undefeated without Mahomes. So that's a great point. But wait. Don't think I don't have something to come back. Don't go away. Keep riding on this train. It's getting more interesting. Next stop will be good. If they lose anyone else to injury, though, anyone else, name the person, they will be fine. See, the Chiefs are actually enclosed from injury. What does that mean? That means that as long as Patrick Mahomes doesn't get hurt, they can actually survive someone else getting hurt. Because if they lose Tyreek Hill to injury, well, you still have Sammy Watkins. If you lose Sammy Watkins to injury, well, you still have Mecole Hardman. If you lose Mecole Hardman to injury, well, you still have Travis Kelce. If you lose Travis Kelce to injury, well, you still have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. They are the only team in the league that can lose their top wide receiver and be fine. They are the only team in the league that can lose their top running back and be fine. Oh, and also, they have big offensive linemen. They have big hog mollies catching touchdown passes too, just like Eric Fisher was last night. I mean, Andy Reid and Mahomes are getting everyone, and Eric Bieniemy in the action. All right, so you got that. Now, let me add some whipped cream to this nice plate of dessert I'm handing out and top off my point with this. Past success sets up future success. Okay? What you've done in the past can set up what you're going to do in the future. Now, it doesn't mean just because you've done something spectacular in the past, you're automatically going to do something spectacular as you move into the future. No. But doing something great or doing something, whatever it is, in the past can set you up for success in that same field, in that same category, whatever it is we're talking about. In this instance, we're talking about football and the Chiefs. Then that helps you get to that future success as well, right? Past success sets up future success. Knowing how to win sets up winning more in the future. It's the complete opposite of what my organization what is happening with them, with the Falcons. They don't know how to win because they haven't had past success. They've had success. They've made the Super Bowl 2 times. They've made the NFC Championship a bunch of times. They've won the NFC South a bunch of times, but they haven't gotten over the hump and won the actual holy grail, the Super Bowl. The Chiefs have won, and they did it last year, and they already got over the hump in Patrick Mahomes' second full season as a quarterback. That sets up success moving forward for a team that wants to go undefeated, because now they don't have to worry about the stress of the most important thing is winning the Super Bowl. Now, of course, the most important thing to them is still winning the Super Bowl, but put it this way. If the Chiefs haven't won the Super Bowl and they have so much talent like they have now, the pressure will be on for Mahomes and Andy Reid to get it done. Reed is getting older. Contracts are going to start coming up soon. You got to get it done. But now that they've already won a Super Bowl, that's checked off. So now it's, hey, let's do something a little bit different this time en route to winning the Super Bowl, because we can actually focus on more things than just winning that Super Bowl, because we know how to win now. Right? So let's not just win the Super Bowl this year. Let's win it by going undefeated. Let's win it by doing something that only the 1972 Dolphins have done. That sets up success. Let me ask you guys this. Who was the last team to go undefeated in the regular season? Not the entire regular season and postseason. We know that's the 72 Dolphins, and we know that they're the only team to do that, as I've alluded to a couple of times here. But the last team to go undefeated in the regular season, who was it? That's right. It was the 2007 New England Patriots. So let's take a look at that team. Tom Brady, he won MVP that year. He was amazing. For the most part, right? He was amazing. Like my little pause there, because we're like, for the most part. He really was, but there was actually, I went back and looked, and I remember some of these games. I remember that run. It was fantastic. It was a crazy run at the time. But I went back for this argument to look at this, and Tom Brady actually had about 3 terrible games that year. One was against the Ravens on Monday Night Football in Baltimore, where I really thought they were going to lose. And that Ravens team was not good that year. They were 5-11, and Brady was awful. But the Patriots still won. Why? Because they were the far better team. Then again, Brady played awful against the Jets, one of the last games of the season. Jets were 4-12. Terrible team. Brady played bad, but the Patriots still won. Why? Because they were just so much better. Dolphins. They went 1-15 Dolphins that year. Brady had the worst game of his season against the 1-15 Dolphins that year. But the Pats still won because they were just that much better. So what does this mean, right? Well, what is all this? What are you saying right now, Kayvon? It means, yes, this is the NFL. Yes, Patrick Mahomes is human. And yes, he is going to have some bad games, just like he already did in week 2. But it doesn't matter, because he has learned how to win, and that team has learned how to win, and that head coach has learned how to win. So even when Mahomes has a bad game, they still win. Let me take you back to that Chargers game real quick. The Chargers had the Chiefs pinned back. It was 3rd and 20 or something. It was like 3rd and 18. And if the Chiefs didn't get this first down, the game was over. What does Mahomes do? He finds a way to run for 18 yards and pick up the first down. He finds a way. They find a way to win, even if Mahomes plays bad. Now, Mahomes has to play good against those 3 or 4 teams that I said earlier, but for the most part, other than that, he really doesn't. There are only 3 games left, if you go and look at their schedule, that he has to play very well in. The Patriots next week. Now, if he comes out flat-footed and they lose to the Patriots next week, then all bets are off. Obviously, right? So these are the games where he has to play well in. The Patriots next week, the Buffalo Bills on Thursday Night Football, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers later in the season. If Mahomes plays Mahomes-type talent, those 3 games, then the Chiefs will go undefeated this season. Mark my word. Patrick Mahomes is 24-1 when his defense allows 28 points or fewer. 24-1. 24 wins, 1 loss when his defense allows 28 points or fewer. You are not beating Mahomes and the Chiefs unless you put up 35 or more points. It's just that simple. You're not beating them. So that's my question. Can they go undefeated? Yes, they can. Will they go undefeated? If they win next week against the Patriots, I'm going to come right here on record, on air, and I'm going to tell you, yes, they can. They have to beat the Patriots next week. If Mahomes plays good, they will, and then they will go undefeated if that happens. Mark my word, save the tape, cut it up, and replay it next week if they beat the Patriots. This is the GSMC Football Podcast brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. We are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, segment number 4, quarter number 4, we are going to get more into that Ravens loss. We're going to talk more about the New Orleans Saints and Drew Brees and what's going on there. Is this an easy fix? Is it really just all they need is Michael Thomas coming back? And then to wrap up the show, it's time that Kayvon Izami, admits that he was wrong on a certain team and a certain player. And for all of you that have been following me since day one of this show, I think this is now our 26th episode. You might know exactly who I'm talking about. But it is time for me to admit, after 3 weeks in, that I was very wrong about this season for this team and this quarterback. And I am upset with what I'm hearing from the coach of this team. Stay tuned to hear that right after this.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC to the extreme cage fighting, we got the fights covered.
Listen.
It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts, past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
Welcome back. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami, headed into quarter number 4, going solo dolo on this great Tuesday afternoon. Whenever you guys are listening, however you're listening, wherever you're listening, we thank you so much for taking out the time to listen. We've had a great show so far today. Really have. Segment number 1 came right off the bat with Emmett Golden of ESPN Cleveland, ESPN Radio, just talking sports. I wanted to change it up, and I wanted to bring him on right off the bat so that you guys could hear it in the first segment and set up the show for what we're going to talk about moving forward. And it was great. It was great to talk to him about Cleveland and what the Browns are doing and if this is going to be a real or fake 2-1 team. Like, can they keep this up? I'll tell you what, overall, the Browns really don't have that hard of a schedule. Now, the problem is their division. All right, their division is tough. We already saw that that Cincinnati, while they still have a lot of holes in their roster and they really just don't have that much talent, they're not going to just be pushed aside, though. Joe Burrow is going to play every game to the final whistle. He is going to give it his all, and he has shown us that he will compete with Cleveland. He kept them in that game. They only ended up losing by 5. So even the Bengals is not a push-away game. And then you have one more game against the Ravens, who absolutely rocked you 38-6 week 1, and then you still have 2 games against the Steelers. So those final 4 games are going to be tough in division. But other than that, they have a lot of winnable games. They play at Dallas this week, which, look, Dallas should win that game. But also, if it wasn't for the Atlanta Falcons just completely choking and not covering an onside kick, forgetting what the rules are for an onside kick, Dallas is sitting at 0-3. Okay, so the Browns should say, hey, we can go in there and beat this team if we really want to play our game and play it well. I don't expect them to win that, but it's a possibility. Then they're home against the Colts. The Colts have looked good, but they're beatable. That's when then they have back-to-back Steelers, Bengals, the 2 division games. Home against the Raiders, home against the Texans, home against the Eagles. That's 3 home games. I like the Raiders a lot this year, but the Texans don't look good. The Eagles look awful, which stay tuned. We're really about to get into them. Then they're at the Jaguars. They're at the Giants, at the Jets. They can win these games. There is no doubt about that. And they can make the playoffs if they're able to stick to their formula. Keep running the ball. Don't put any pressure on Baker. Let Baker just hand it off, and then make sure he makes the plays when he needs to. What does that mean? Run, play action time, hit Odell, hit Jarvis Landry, hit Austin Hooper, hit Kareem Hunt, hit Nick Chubb out of the backfield. That's what he has to be able to do. But for the most part, it's rush it 10 times a game with Kareem Hunt, rush it 20 times a game with Nick Chubb, rush it 40 times a game total. That's what they need to be doing, and if they can do that, like Emmett said, then they have a chance. Now, there's going to be some ups and downs. We know that, and we'll see how head coach, he's doing good so far, but he also is a rookie head coach. So how does he take those ups and downs? How does Baker take those ups and downs? We've seen in the past that he's not able to so well. So the Browns will be an interesting storyline moving forward. We just talked about the Kansas City Chiefs and how I totally think that they can go 16-0. They can go undefeated in the regular season. If they want to, they can. And what do you mean by that? Like I said it. They can beat teams when Mahomes plays bad. They showed that. They showed that against the Chargers. And I know people are saying, the Chargers had a rookie quarterback. I don't care. The Chargers have a good football team, a very good pass rush, which is how you upset Mahomes and get him uncomfortable. And also, they ended up playing their rookie quarterback last second when the Chiefs had no idea what was going to happen, and they didn't prepare for him at all. And they still they squeaked by, but they were able to squeak by. Like I said, there's about 15 teams that they can beat when Mahomes plays bad. There's about 13, 14 teams where he has to play good to beat, and then there's about three teams where he has to play Patrick Mahomes type football to beat, and that starts with this week against the New England Patriots. Okay, he cannot have a bad game. He has to have a good game to beat New England. This is a really good New England team, a New England team that I think is much better this year with Cam Newton because of the different types of looks that they can give to defenses. I mean, last week we saw Rex Burkhead have 3 touchdowns. Like, what? And then the week before that, we saw Cam Newton throw for 350 yards. Like, they can do whatever they want, and they will switch it up, and they will be unpredictable, just like I said in the beginning of the season. And it's going to be very, very intriguing to watch next week. But if the Kansas City Chiefs, which that game will be at home, and Kansas City will have some fans in there, if they can win that game, then I fully believe they can go undefeated. They'll have 2 more very tough games against the Bills on Thursday Night Football. That will be at Buffalo, but it is before it gets really cold in Buffalo. I think that is week so they have the Patriots, then they have the Raiders, and then they're at the Bills. So that's still in October. So it's much different playing in Buffalo in October than it is in December when it's really cold. But that's still going to be a very tough game. That will be a Thursday night game. Can't wait for that. And then they have the Buccaneers at Tampa Bay in November 29th. So those are the 3 teams that Mahomes has to play Mahomes-type football if they want a chance to go undefeated. And if they start that by winning this Sunday, then I think they can do it. I really do. And obviously Mahomes has to stay healthy. But other than that, if they have a couple injuries along the way, I think they can get over that. It just might mean Mahomes has to always play Mahomes-type football, which I think he's up to the task. I think Andy Reid's up to the task. I think Eric Bieniemy's up to the task. And like I said, they've done it. Past success leads to future success, right? What does that mean? They've got it done. They know how to win. Now they can focus on other things while they're on their way to winning, which is winning in a different way. Undefeated type season. So that's going to be a really fun storyline to track as we go here. Now let's look at the team that they beat pretty easily, in my opinion, on Monday night against the Baltimore Ravens. A game that we all were very, very intrigued in watching, a game that was highly anticipated once that schedule came out. We all circled it, and, at times it lived up to the hype, but not really. Overall, it was just the Chiefs showing us that they are the real deal. It was Patrick Mahomes showing us that we better not forget about him, and that they are borderline unstoppable when they're clicking. It was Lamar Jackson not even throwing for 100 yards. He went 15 for 28 for 97 yards. I don't know how you throw the ball 28 yards and it doesn't go, 28 times and you don't go over 100 yards in the NFL. 15 completions, 97 yards. That's 3.5 yards a throw. That's not good. That's not good at all. And that's the problem. They didn't have a second game plan. They don't have a second game plan. It's simple. We got some big boys up front on the offensive line, and we can push you around and we can run you all over. But if we get down, that running has to stop, and you have to start throwing the ball. And they have not shown us that they can do that yet. They just haven't. What does that mean? It means more teams are going to be able to try and play them that way. Now, the good thing for the Ravens is there's not many teams that have the talent. Actually, let me take that back. There are no teams that have the talent that Kansas City has. So it's not going to be very likely that they do get down like that in many games. But the Steelers can easily get up on the Ravens. The Steelers are a very good team. If Big Ben stays healthy, like I said, I told you, I predict them. I predicted the Steelers to win 11 games this year. I predicted the Steelers to put up a good fight for the division, but Baltimore would eventually win it. The Ravens have to be careful here, and I know a lot of people are going to come at Lamar, and Lamar, he deserves blame. He's got to work, and he's going to work. He is such a humble kid. He's still so young, and he's going to get better. He's one of those kids that will make sure he gets better and is successful. But John Harbaugh and offensive coordinator Greg Roman have got to put him in better situations. They've got to make sure he's throwing the ball, not just these little slant passes, these little dump offs. They got to get his receivers open. They've got to scheme his receivers open better, and make up a better game plan. They need to have two different game plans, one for when they're winning and one for when they're down, because it's complete different game plans, and they have not shown us that they can do that second one. Now, I will say this, the receivers didn't help him out. Mark Andrews, the great tight end that he's been the last couple of years, dropped probably 5 passes, it feels like. So it was an off night for everyone. The defense was terrible. It was a tough night. Do I think that they'll still be a great team? Of course. If the Chiefs end up not really wanting to go undefeated or they slip up a little bit, the Ravens still could get the number 1 seed. They could end up going 14-2 again. Now, I think that if the Chiefs beat the Patriots tomorrow, they end up trying to go undefeated and go for that record. But the Ravens can easily win 14, 13 games and be right there. But they're not going to win in the playoffs until they change. And what I was shocked about was what Lamar came out after the game and said, "They're our kryptonite." I didn't like that. You do not want to hear that if you're a Baltimore Ravens fan. You don't want to hear that at all. You watch that game and then you go and watch that press conference. This is a Ravens team that is spooked. Lamar is spooked by this Kansas City team. This was the worst game Lamar has played in his career. I really think in his NFL career. And again, I know Mark Andrews didn't help him out at all, dropped numerous passes, but this is now becoming between the ears with Lamar. It's becoming a mental thing. It's becoming something he's thinking about. The reporter wasn't even finished asking the question, and he jumped in and said, "Yeah, that's our kryptonite." That means he's thinking about them. That means he understands Mahomes has the better hand over him right now. And now the Baltimore Ravens officially have a problem. Their QB, their head coach, and their entire team is worried about the Kansas City Chiefs. And that's the last thing that you want to hear. It's up to the coaching staff to get that right. It's going to be up to the coaching staff to get that right. Now, this is the GSMC Football Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami, going solo dolo, coming down the final stretch of quarter number 4, ready to win the game as we head into the latter part of the week. I hope everyone's having a great week and excited for that awesome Thursday night game, right? The New York Jets at the Denver Broncos. Woo, that's gonna be a barn burner, isn't it? Oh yeah. Hey, look out for my boy Braxton Berrios, man. Went to high school with him. Really good friends with him. Really good friends with his brother Austin and his family. They're great. They're great people. And he is a wide receiver for the Jets, and he's been tearing it up lately. You know, they've had a lot of injuries. He's getting his playing time, and hopefully the Jets are realizing they have some talent right there with him, and he keeps getting that playing time when guys like Jamison Crowder come back. So look out for Braxton. He's been great. Now, I want to get into a team that I had high hopes on, a quarterback that I have talked about all offseason, and I've been wrong. And the listeners have been telling me. I've been getting tweets about it, and rightfully so, and I love it. And by the way, we are going to start a segment next week called Hey Kayvon, where I'm just going to read out the tweets. You know, hey Kayvon, come talk about whatever you want to talk about. Come at me with that I'm wrong. Tell me that I'm wrong. Tell me that I don't know football. Or tell me y'all's predictions. Tell me what you like so far in the season. We're going to start that. Got to give credit to my sister Sarah. She came up with that name. She came up with that segment idea, and I love it. So mad props to her, and we will start that. Hey Kayvon, so send over the tweets at Kayvon_sports, at Kayvon_sports, and I will read them out loud. So that team, though, and that quarterback is obviously, if you've been listening since show 1, and again, we are now in show 26 or 27th, it's one of those, it is the Philadelphia Eagles and Carson Wentz. I had very high hopes, and rightfully so. Look, people, are going to come and say, how could you like Wentz? He hasn't shown it. That's just wrong, okay? Like, if you want to have a real conversation about this, let's have a real conversation, okay? Was I too high on him? Yeah, clearly I was. Am I jumping off the bandwagon that he's done as a quarterback? No, not at all. But this season, there's something going on. And I don't know if they can bounce back from it, especially after the decision made by the head coach with last game, which we'll get into in 1 second. But with Carson Wentz, what he did last year with literally no one around him. I mean, he was throwing to former college quarterbacks that had to turn into wide receivers on the team, and he made the playoffs, all right? He made the playoffs, and I really think he would have beat Seattle if he didn't get hurt and have that cheap shot by Clowney where he hit his head and had a concussion, because that was a one-score game with McCown out there. And no disrespect to McCown, but Wentz is a lot better than McCown. So, I think that something is up this season. I think that there is no trust between Doug Pederson and Carson Wentz. And frankly, I don't even think they like each other. And this is not sources. This is not me talking to anyone or anything like that. This is just me watching those two and remembering how Pederson used to talk with Foles. I do not think Pederson likes Wentz, and I think Wentz feels that, and I don't think he likes him back. I think that Wentz is trying to put a Superman cape on every single time he throws the ball. I think he's trying to say that he doesn't like the play calls and he's trying to do it his own way. And it's not working. And there's a mess going on with that team. There's a mess. But I want to get into this because if you guys saw this, the game was the Philadelphia Eagles were playing the Cincinnati Bengals. Cincinnati, as we all know, they were the worst team in football last year. They got the number 1 pick, took Joe Burrow, and it was 23-23. Wentz was having a terrible game. The entire team was playing terrible, and the Eagles had the ball on Cincinnati's 41-yard line. Okay, 41-yard line, and it was 4th and 7. And it was on Cincinnati's 41-yard line, and there was 19 seconds left in overtime, and the Eagles were going to kick a field goal to try and win the game. They lined up in the field goal formation, and a penalty was on Philadelphia. False start. That's 5 yards back. So then it makes it 4th and 12. All right? So now they're at the 46-yard line, and they are still planning on kicking a field goal. Another penalty happens on Philadelphia, which then makes it 4th and 17 back on Philadelphia's 49-yard line. So they are completely out of field goal range, right? They're past the 50, they're pretty much at the 50-yard line. They're completely out of field goal range. There is 18 seconds left on the clock, and it's 4th and 17. The Eagles have not won a game yet. They're at home. They're playing the worst team in football last year. And Doug Pederson decides to punt the ball. Doug Pederson, the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, decides to punt the ball, which pretty much is saying, actually not pretty much, it is saying, we are going to tie the game. He punted the ball, obviously. The Bengals got it with 13 seconds left. They ran one play, just ran the ball up the middle, tie game. So they punted the ball. He said, I do not want to go for this because I don't trust my players. I don't trust my quarterback. And so I'd rather tie the game. And this is what Doug Pederson appeared on the Philadelphia Sports Radio, WIP, in Philadelphia Monday after the game. And he was asked about the subject of possibly benching Carson Wentz. And he said, quote, no, you don't go there. That's a knee-jerk reaction. Carson is our quarterback. And then on the subject of punting at the end of the game, he said this. He said, looking back, you probably should have put that in your quarterback's hands to win the game. Okay, end quote. So clearly, yes, he regrets making that decision. Should he regret making that decision? Yes. No freaking duh. It's a terrible decision, and he deserves to get criticized and scrutinized and demolished for this, okay? You're playing the team that had the number one pick last year in the NFL draft, the number one pick that won 2 games with a rookie quarterback at home. I don't care how good Joe Burrow has looked through 2 games. He is a rookie quarterback with a team that has no talent, barely any talent for that. You're at home. You are 0-2. If you can't beat that team, then tying them means nothing in the NFL. And Doug Pederson knows this. It's win or nothing. It's win or nothing else. A tie is a loss in this case, and you had the opportunity to roll the dice and say, I'm going to trust in my quarterback who's struggling like crazy right now. And I'm going to trust him and my football team because I need to show them confidence. I need to inject some type of confidence in them, and this can do that. And instead, you decide to punt. You said, we will take the tie? And what's crazy is 2 years ago, if you guys remember this, Frank Wright, head coach of the Indianapolis Colts, who was under Doug Pederson when they won the Super Bowl against the Patriots. He then got the head coaching job with Indianapolis, and the Colts were in this exact same situation. And he said, I've got to trust my guys to go make this play. They were 1-5 at the time, and they go for it on 4th down. They get it, they win the game, and it ended up propelling them to go on a massive run and make the playoffs. Doug Pederson, where's the guy that called the Philly special in the Super Bowl? Where's the guy that went for it on 4th and 3 in the Super Bowl against Bill Belichick and the New England Patriots? I understand your team's playing poorly. I get that. But to punt on 4th and 12 sends a very clear message to your football team that you don't think they're any good. Straight up. And how can you actually go into the locker room now and look at that and justify that? How can you do that? It was a scared decision by Doug Pederson. It was a scared decision that his quarterback can't get the job done. It was a scared decision that if they didn't get it and they didn't get the first down and they go and lose to the Bengals, then what happens, huh? What are people going to say then? It was scared. He was scared that they weren't going to get it and they were going to lose. And Pederson punted on his team. And I don't care how bad Wentz has been. And he has been real bad. But this is your franchise quarterback. You are literally telling your team that you do not trust him enough to beat the worst team in football last year. And you know what? I would have loved to see Carson Wentz say, man, screw this. Give me the ball. I'm changing up the play call. I'm going for it. What is Doug Pederson going to do? Run out on the field? Tackle him? I would have loved, that's not in Carson Wentz's DNA, and that's just not. But I would have loved to see him do that. And that's what he should have done. Because this was an awful decision by Doug Pederson, and I don't know how you recover from this position. Because what needs to happen is a fire needed to be lit under this team. And it's just, Wentz is playing bad, everyone is playing bad, and I don't care that they have a bunch of injuries. Guys, football is a game of inches. 1 inch this way or 1 inch that way is the difference of winning or losing. Momentum can change an entire season. It's a game of momentum. And momentum can change an entire season around. Doug Pederson had that momentum in his back pocket, and he decided to keep it there. And I don't want to hear that a tie is better than losing. No, it's not. If anyone has played a competitive sport before, you do not want to tie. The last thing you want to do is tie. And the optics of this make it so much worse. The way this went down, the way Doug Pederson showed he didn't trust his team. If you roll the dice and you lose, well, guess what? At least you show to your team that you had faith in them to get it done. You don't curl up and say, I'm too scared to lose here. If I'm in that locker room, I'm going to Doug Pederson and I'm saying, I would have rather lost that game than tie. We played 3 hours. Maybe not well, but we played 3 hours of hard football. And now we're just going to tie? Because how do you now go next Sunday, go into that locker room, look at that team in the huddle, and say, I believe you guys to go out and win that game? How do you do that? You can't. You can't. But you could have said, hey, I believe in you. Or stand there and tell your defense, who has the highest paid defensive line in football, that I believe that when we need to get a stop, that you can get a stop for Carson Wentz. When I need you to be your absolute best, you can do that. I trust that you will be, because you get this opportunity. But Doug Pederson completely blew this opportunity. It was a terrible call. It was a scared call. And he deserves to get criticized. Carson Wentz deserves to get criticized because he's been playing terrible. The whole team deserves to get criticized. But Doug Pederson needs to take the entire blame of this loss. And if it wasn't for them being in the worst division of football, where they actually are somehow still in one game out of first place, that's how bad this division is, then there should be a lot of... I understand he won a Super Bowl. I get it. But that was a terrible call. And I'm not saying to fire him over that call, but I do not know how this team turns around from that. I really don't. If you go for that and you get it, your season turns around. If you go for that and you don't get it, you still have a chance to turn your season around, because you can walk in that locker room and say with a straight face, hey guys, I believed in you. We didn't get it done, but I believe in you to get it done this week. Now what are you going to say, huh? I didn't believe in you, but I slept on it for 5 days, and now I think I should believe in you, so I do believe in you? Get out of here. Absolutely terrible call. Doug Pederson gets the Water Boy of the Week award for that type of nonsense. Couldn't believe what I saw. Couldn't believe it. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. The GSMC Football Podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really does help us out. Also, if you can, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you all. Have a great night, and we cannot wait to talk to you this weekend and break down some football games coming up on Sunday. Have a good one. Bye.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.